success. So with I wanted to talk a little bit about the e-commerce forum. So we've been doing this for, I don't remember, I think well over 10 years now. It's every second Wednesday of every month, except when we have maybe cancellations or whatnot. So if you know any speakers or presenters, want to get involved, please come see me or message me through the website.
Perfect.
Let me see. So tonight we have Liz Salcedo from Everpurse, and she's going to tell us a little bit about how she came up with the idea, and how she started the whole company, and how it's a big success now. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
So I'm going to stand here so I can flip through the slides. But I would love for this to be very conversational. So please, if there's anywhere that I'm going that you want me to stop and elaborate or questions you have, please don't wait till the end. My sense from looking back at past events is that you guys have had a lot of people come in and talk about marketing and SEO, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are much better, much more educated, have a greater specialty in that than I do. So I would love to talk to you about physical products and the manufacturing and fulfillment and designing a new product side of e-commerce. So how many of you, and we did some introductions, but how many of you consider yourselves founders, or you work at a startup versus corporate? Okay. And how many of you, maybe besides our jewelry friend, make physical products? All right, cool. So please, if you have any questions about anything related to that, that's the kind of stuff that gets me really, really excited. So I would love to elaborate in any direction you guys want to go in. So this is Everpurse. We make tech that goes inside of physical accessories like handbags. And we try to focus entirely on it being a handbag plus. So it's not a tech bag, it's not a tech product. It is a handbag that has a little extra benefits, because we know that most women are not buying this bag because it's a tech bag, but because it's a really cool bag that they love and it does a little extra something for them. So this is how it works. How do I get the meter play? Got it. So you put your phone in the bag in a little charging pocket. It charges up. And then it comes with a wireless charging mat. You just slide your bag on top of the mat and it recharges. And so the idea behind it was that we know that most women, when they're not on their phone and they're walking around, they put their phone inside of their bag. And so we wanted it to feel like magic. You put your phone in your bag, and when you pull it out, it's like it magically has more power. And this really came about because I was looking for the perfect bag for myself. I wanted something that just worked without me having to think about it. I was always on the go. I was, always looking for outlets. Starbucks doesn't let you plug in your phone anymore. I was always running out of power, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could charge my phone on the go? But the key is that I have to never, ever have to think about it, because if I could think about it, then it wouldn't be a problem. I would already have charged my phone in the morning, or I would have brought a battery pack with me. So it has to charge without me thinking about it, and then when I get home at night, the bag itself has to charge without me having to think about it. So we built this wireless mat and decided that if I put it where I always put my stuff, because when I get home at night, most of us put our coat in the same place, our shoes in the same place. If I put my mat in the same place and I just drop my bag down on it, then in the morning, my bag is fully charged. So this is a really big, important theme for us when we thought about designing this product. This is 6 years ago, before the idea of customer user-centered design was a thing. For us, it was super important to think about how people use products and how they interact in their daily lives to make a product really sticky. So we didn't have to build new habits, it just fit into the habits that people already have. So when we decided to go for Everpurse, we thought, what's the best way to make sure that there's actually a business behind this? And so we decided to go for Kickstarter. And this was back when Kickstarter was a little bit more amateurish than it is today, and so we really tried to focus on making this super professional. And and really looking at it as a way to test the market before building a business. You know, is this something where my friends and my family are like, oh Liz, that's such a cute bag you made, it's so nice, I'm sure you'll do really well. Or will people actually put down money to buy this thing that we've made? So we did a huge PR push. We made individualized videos for reporters showing them how it worked, and got a lot of really great articles in, you know, tech blogs and fashion and lifestyle across the gamut, and did really well. We beat our goal in the first couple of days, but then realized, oh my God, this means that now we have to figure out how to make this product, not just one-on-one, me in my kitchen with prototyping materials, but something that's actually scalable. We now have a business. And so we had to figure out how to build it in-house first. We talked to a couple factories and they all said, no one has ever put electronics inside of leather. There is no factory that will do that for you. But also, when you're making something, you have to tell the factory exactly what to do. It's really, really expensive if you hand them a product and say, please reverse engineer this and figure out how to make it. You have to tell them, first you put down this screw, then this screw, then this screw, then this screw. Then you pass it to the gluing station. Then you pass it to the other station. So we had developed all of these methodologies for ourselves. Not only that, we had to source all of these products. And as it turns out, most batteries and wireless charging components are not made in the US. So we found someone who would help us source it from China and bring all the products here. Which brings us to another layer of complication. Customs doesn't know what wireless charging is. And so we had this period of maybe close to a week where we had wireless charging parts flown into the US and they were stuck in Memphis. And we got a call from Customs and they said, we have your parts. Is this a radio? No, this is not a radio. It's a wireless charging device. Does it transmit things? Well, yes, it transmits energy between the two parts. So it's a radio. It's not a radio. Back and forth and back and forth. Until we filed for our own listing under FCC. We had to file for our own designation for a wireless charging component inside of leather goods. We did the same thing for customs, for when the entire product ended up coming into the US fully built. So the customs would know how to tax a product that is both leather goods, which can be up to 17% tax, and an electronic, which is closer to between 2 and 3%. So as we were putting all of this together, figuring out, okay, how do we manufacture this? How do we build the methodologies? How do we find partners in the US who will build the bags for us, and bringing in the components from China and building all these methodologies? This is a little video, time-lapse of us in our office building all of these parts and boxing them up. We got a lot of college students, and we had a UPS guy that would come to our office every day because we were, at this point, we were fulfilling Kickstarter, but we were also selling on our own site pre-orders. So we would sell, and then we would produce it, and then we would ship it. So the delay was maybe 2 or 3 weeks between getting an order and shipping it out. And so we would be building them and then trying to ship them out at the same time. So we had a wonderful UPS guy who would come every day to pick up product for us, but we were always just, one more bag, and so we'd always have a pile of snacks for him. So that he'd come, and we'd try to get him to stay just a little longer while we packaged just one more bag to get out that day. So at this point, we had moved away from Kickstarter, so we were selling on our own site, and I wasn't actually the one in charge of the decision, but one of our CTO set out to figure out how we were going to set up our own e-commerce site. And this was the end of 2012. So we didn't have quite the same range of options that we have today. And he looked at a bunch of them, including Magento, and ultimately, we were so overwhelmed with the options that we built our own site on Drupal, which is probably one of many mistakes that we made along the way. We also chose it because it connected to SOS, which is an inventory management system. Stands for Saddle Oak Software, but SOS is really like, that's what we were screaming every day, SOS, oh my God, please help us. It was the most complex inventory management system. And we really thought as this tiny little company that we would need this huge complex system because we were gonna get to be so big that we needed to start, really strong from the beginning. But another lesson learned that start where you're at. It was too comprehensive, right? We had to track every single screw that went in and out of the office. But that doesn't track the screws that fall on the floor and roll into your desk, and the plastic part that breaks that you forgot to check off. So we set up all of our own systems from scratch. And as you can imagine, it felt like that. A little chaotic, a little like we were running around with like chickens with our heads cut off. But a lot of things that we learned that were really important building blocks for turning it into something that was more scalable. At this time, we also, so when you make physical products, you need molds, which are like these big steel plates that are cut out, and you pour plastic in them, and they clamp together, and when they open up, your plastic part drops out. And these molds are really expensive. And so around this time, we won the Proto Molds Innovation Award. It was awesome, and they gave us about $92,000. Maybe once we calculated all of their energy in helping us design and put together all this stuff, it was close to $150,000 worth of product that they gave us, and allowed us to make all of the plastic parts that housed all of the electronics that we put inside of the bags. And there was one point where they were a little slow, probably because we weren't paying for any of this. They were a little slow to prioritize our stuff, and so we flew out to Minneapolis to harass them and get them to produce our parts faster. And it worked. Showing up works. So I'm going really fast, I feel, and you guys aren't asking any questions, so please, yes.
Could you tell us about your background a little bit and
Sure.
How your team got together, and then who has what kind of expertise and how you outsource some of the product development?
So I started off as a social worker before this, as part of my running around using up all my cell phone battery. But I started off with no knowledge or experience of designing, engineering, manufacturing, selling, marketing, any of this. Maybe the closest thing is when we started doing partnerships with brands, I had some experience talking with people. But really, it really came out of a personal project that took off and became bigger than anything I ever could have imagined. So I started the business with my husband, who had much more marketing PR experience than I had, and a co-founder from another startup that he was doing, his other co-founder, who became our CTO. And he was the guy who built our Drupal site from scratch. And everything else we just taught ourselves. I mean, long nights studying graphs and schematics on batteries and electronics, and just testing things out. I knew that I wanted for the battery, it needed to be something that could charge and discharge at the same time. So if you had your bag on the mat, your bag is receiving energy and charging, but I wanted to be able to put your phone in at the same time, and the energy would go from the battery to your phone. And this seems like a normal, not complicated requirement, but it turns out this is very complex and difficult to do, and most batteries won't do that, and most battery manufacturers won't custom make a battery like that for you. because it requires a whole bunch of extra safety circuits and capacitors. So all of this, we learned by trial and error. We sent out a lot of sample bags to people that we thought were really important, and crossed our fingers that they got one that was, it was our latest, best attempt at a sample, and fingers crossed it turned out well for them, and a lot of them did. We haven't, we've never heard back from them. They haven't tried to return them or anything. So for all we know, they're still working 5 years later. And then from there, we built, I think as many startups do, we built our team with a lot of generalists, so people that we thought were maybe just more experienced in startup-y stuff than we were. And as we grew, some of them left us, and other more experienced people came on that could better help us with marketing or better help us with development. But all along we've tried to outsource and bring in partners as we go along so that we stay really lean and flexible. Because we've had times where we were focused entirely on engineering, and then times when we were focused entirely on sales and partnerships. And so we didn't want to have 3 engineers that were then doing nothing for 6 months, right? And then some other salespeople that weren't doing anything for the other half of the year. So we brought in engineers and other designers and marketers as needed, and just kind of stayed really lean and flexible like that. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
So at this stage, you guys were building both the purses and the wireless charging devices, right?
Yeah.
And maybe this is naive, this is totally not my space, but I'm curious, was it even ever a possibility for you guys to, instead of going straight to consumer, going business to business and partnering with people who manufacture purses, right out the gate, let them figure out how to work with their pipeline, so you guys can just focus on the wireless charging devices?
Yeah.
Was that never a consideration? Was that a
So
possibility
we
this early on?
did, we weren't actually sewing bags at this point. We found so at this point I'm in Chicago, and we found a small designer there who was willing to work with us, and we used her manufacturer. So we would build all the tech in our office here. We'd bring the tech to his workshop, and we'd put it in the bag, he'd sew up the top, and we'd take it back and package it. So we weren't stitching leather, for sure. That's way, way out of our wheelhouse. But we did have to teach him how to do it and figure out for ourselves, well, how thick does leather need to be? Because wireless charging, sometimes, depending on the wireless charging you have, the distance between the mat and the part inside of the bag can be this big or it can be this big. And it just depends on the component that you have, which tech you've gone with. But then that means you need to make sure that your leather is not too thick, or there's not, other things in the way, or your keys can't get in between the charging parts. And so there was a lot that we knew we needed to figure out before we could go to a large manufacturer and tell them how to do it.
What phones does this work with?
So when we started out, we were only doing iPhone 4. We didn't even have iPhone 5s yet. So now we do all iPhones, all Lightning connectors. We did Android at one point I think we had it on sale for maybe a year. But we invested a lot of money in that before realizing that there is not a great market there. You would think, because the majority of the world has Androids, but statistically, Apple users spend more on accessories for their iPhones than Android users do, and the wide variety of Android phones makes it almost impossible to make a single product for all Androids. Not only like the size and the shape, but the charging capacity and how much pull each Android phone has. Creating a charging system that works for all Androids is close to impossible until the USB-C is standard. I hope that's not too complicated. Yeah. So we pulled it back, basically. So now we only do iPhones.
How does your product compare to wireless mats that are sold to all companies and stuff like
It's based on a different type of wireless charging, like a different brand of wireless charging, but it's similar. In theory, you could take one of your Everpurse bags and put it on a wireless mat in a coffee shop. So one of the differences is that iPhones don't have wireless capability built in yet, and so you would need to have a case on the outside of your iPhone in order to put it on a wireless table, say at Starbucks. And most of, at least our users, are too fashion conscious to do something like that. The cases that do wireless charging are ugly. And so we just found that it's, that maybe the technology is similar and the use case and the need for it is similar, but the demographic is very different. Yeah.
I was going to ask about the pocket in there. So
Mhm.
is something I should plug in, or is that wireless as well?
That actually plugs in. And so what we did, because we wanted to make sure that you're not fishing for it, it really does slide in like it did in the GIF. And so we made this, this pocket that I can show you later because I have one in there. And it's like a sleeve, and it's got all these little levers, and the plastic is very pliable. So when you slide your phone in, it adjusts for the phone so that it slides in and centers over the lightning connector perfectly. So it just slides in and feels like it's wireless. Like it's magic. Yeah.
So at this point, you could retrofit any bag?
I could actually, and that's one of the things that we put on Kickstarter, was that we would retrofit any bag that you had. We charged a lot for it because it took a lot of time to do. But we did have a couple people take us up on it. Our very first paying customer was an escort who came to our office and sat there for, I don't know, 4 hours while I retrofitted her bag for her and paid me in cash. That is one of the bucks. Yeah. But we absolutely, yeah, we no longer do it. It's just not worth the time. But it was a really, actually doing that was a really important exercise for me in learning about different types of bags and how you would install tech in bags that look all different, you know, different sizes and shapes. Because it turns out that that is a really complicated part of it.
How heavy is it?
The tech weighs the same as an iPhone. So it's not something that most people have ever, you know, complained about. You don't, once you throw a couple of things in there, you don't even notice. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So right now, are you only doing Kate Spade? How did you get into Kate Spade? And then a more fun question. Do you recommend starting a startup with your husband?
So, well, when we're going to get there to how we got Kate Spade. But yes, right now we are only doing Kate Spade for a number of reasons. We talked with a lot of different brands, and they were the one that was really ready. And a lot of the retail landscape has changed since then. So brands' attitudes towards tech has changed a lot since a couple of years ago. But I'll elaborate a lot on that more. And then I absolutely recommend for some people starting a startup with your significant other. It has been amazing for us. We know each other so much better than we ever would have before, and the level of communication that we can have when there's no one else that knows exactly what I was feeling at the exact same moment that I was feeling it, because we went through everything together. And so there's no need to explain. The level of communication that you can have is incredible. And I think whenever you start a startup with someone, they become a significant other. That's a marriage. And so if it can be someone that you actually want to be married to, that's even better. But for other people, I know it can be terrible. And I've had many people say I could never do that. If I had to see my spouse every day, all day long, it would destroy us. And but that definitely was not us. It was a learning curve. It wasn't always easy, but I really, really, it was really good. It has been really good for us. Yeah, and we would do it again. Yeah. Okay, so around this time is when we decided to start patenting our stuff, which was another huge endeavor. So we filed 9 different patents on all different types of, all different areas and aspects of our product, from the software stuff that we were developing to make it more of a platform so that it was a bag that would do lots of different things for you, as well as the actual wireless charging inside of a bag and the way that the wireless charging mat looks. So this was a whole nother area and whole nother learning curve, figuring out how you build a patent and the whole process of filing and waiting and then updating your patent and realizing that the key things to a patent is making it as broad as possible. I thought you want to get really specific about exactly what makes your product special, and it turns out the key is to say almost nothing about it and make it so broad that anybody could possibly violate it by coming anywhere close to what you do. So luckily we had a really great patent lawyer, and we've since had 2 of our patents approved, which is really, really exciting. We have 2 patents to my name. All right, so then we moved to manufacturing in China. And I have to say, before we got here, we got into an incubator called Hacks, which if anybody wants to do a physical product, manufacturing a physical product is an incredible program. They're backed by a venture firm called SOS Ventures, and they take companies around the world and they bring them to China, to Shenzhen, and they help them figure out how to manufacture. They don't give you a factory, but they help you to understand how you assess a factory, how you know if it's a good factory, how you know if it's a bad factory, how you find somebody to help you source or someone to help you import and export and all of that kind of stuff. So we found this lovely factory that helped us build all of our components and then put them inside of the bags. And they worked really closely. These are Kate Spade bags. They ended up working really closely with Kate Spade's handbag manufacturer. So this is another major lesson that we learned. Both of these factories, the handbag factory and the electronics factory, are 45 minutes away from each other. All of them speak Mandarin, and I was translating between them. Because it turns out that electronics and handbags or leather are totally different languages, and they could not understand each other. And we'd have them in the same room poring over the same products, talking about how they should build the bag and how we were going to install it and all of that, and they could not understand each other. And it comes down to simple things like, what does embossing mean? And in tech, embossing means punching up, so something has a raised, and in fashion, embossing means punching down. So basic things like that, where we thought we have to be on the same page. We had to make sure every little thing was understood properly and demonstrated in drawings and physical prototypes and samples back and forth. It was a lot. We spent months living there, which turns out was really, really cool. And we drove out every day to this factory and stood on the line with them, testing every single bag ourselves to make sure it worked, and stopping the line when we saw that something was wrong, and trying to communicate with all these women by hand signals, stop, or go. But it was a really thrilling experience to see something that you've been working on for so many years, come out as this baby, and then it gets put in a box and put on a ship, and you don't see it for months. But to see your baby being birthed was incredible. So this is us moving to China. But while we were this kind of process of moving our manufacturing to China was happening at the same time that we were finishing production in the U.S. in that office, in that fast-paced video. And during this time, we got a lot of really great press. We were on the Today Show and the Katie Couric Show, and we started getting all of this all of these incoming queries from fashion brands asking to partner with us and to come in and talk with them about how to put tech into bags. One of my favorite stories is, she didn't come to me, I came to her, but I heard that Rebecca Minkoff had a trunk show at Nordstrom's, and so I went, and I didn't have enough money to buy one of her bags, so I stood in line with my own bag and got to the front and showed her and pitched her my bag. I got this great photo of her like, what? And she gave me her card, and we went, and we had great conversations about how to put our tech into her products, although ultimately went with Kate Spade. And we went with them, despite meeting with all these other brands, because they were really ready. I mean, we knew that taking on a partnership like this for a brand involved a lot. And unlike maybe bringing in software to a corporate client, or maybe similarly, I guess I shouldn't, I don't know. But you can't just have the CEO sign off on it, or even the lead designer sign off on it. Like, if anyone says they can't do this, like production or marketing or the sales girls on the sales floor, like if anybody says we can't do this won't work, it dies. And so you don't do one pitch or two pitches, you're pitching the entire time throughout the entire process, all the way through manufacturing, while the product is being shipped, all the way through when it hits the actual stores and people are starting to sell it. So we saw through talking with a lot of brands that a lot of them just weren't ready. There was someone who was an internal advocate, but if they left or if someone else said, I don't think we can do this, then it just died. But Kate Spade was really ready. They were all on board, and they had a brand that was really conducive to working with us. Their brand is very urban woman, on the go, young and fun and playful, but loves to travel, but works hard, makes money, the kinds of things that fit very well with our demographic. Yeah.
I have a question here. Once you started working with these bigger brands like Kate Spade, were they willing to, were you able to still have your brand be anywhere on the purses themselves? So like if I was a shopper later on, right, would I be looking for that Everpurse logo somewhere on that bag?
Yeah.
Was that present?
Yeah, and this is actually not something we had to fight for. It's something they wanted. So what we found is that most of these brands wanted to stay pure fashion, and they didn't want to be known as a tech brand because that dilutes them, right? They're not, yes, they're selling handbags, but they're really selling their brand, right? Their vision of the world, right? And so once they become a tech product, it detracts a little bit from who they are. So all of it is co-branded, where our logo is on the charging mat, our logo is on the part of the bag that touches the charging mat, our logo is on the pocket where you slide your phone, our logo is on the literature, our logo is on the packaging, on the outer box. It's everywhere, and they are very, very explicit about what is us and what is them. And yeah, that's something that they required. Worked out really well. And part of the reason we wanted to go this route is we knew it would put us on the map, and it did. But we also knew that we didn't want to fight against all of these big brands and marketing machines. And I think the landscape has changed a little bit, but at least 4 years ago, we saw that most of the women that we were talking to were like, cool, but I like my bags and my favorite brands. And when are you going to put your tech in my bag? Because I would never buy your bag. And so we didn't want to have that kind of competition. Now the landscape's changed and niche brands are becoming cool and everybody wants to have the bag that no one has ever seen before. But just 3 or 4 years ago, that was absolutely not the case. And so we really saw ourselves as becoming a tech platform within a number of different brands, and Kate Spade was really the first. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so we started talking to Kate Spade, and it took about a year before we actually closed with them. This is something else actually that we've heard a lot. Is a lot of people say, well, okay, so you've partnered with this brand, but then what's to keep them from turning around a year later and going with a different partner who sells it for $1 cheaper? Or why don't they just bring it in-house? And this is something that we found over and over and over again, that fashion brands don't want to do that. They even told us if we were to bring in an engineer, it would be like cancer to our company. It would just eat us from the inside out. and culturally, the corporate culture could not handle having an engineer inside. The way that they think is just antithetical to the way that fashion brands think. And then we saw again that to them, the most important thing is consistency. So I think in tech, whether it's software or hardware, when you put out a product and then you see how it goes and you see, okay, well, I want to fix A, B, C, like there's some improvements we can make. So then you put out a second product that improves upon those things. And when we did this with Kate Spade, they said, no changes. Same, exact same copy as the first version. Which confounded us. Why would you not make things better if you could? But for them, just don't, if it's not really broken, don't fix it. Just keep going. They would not move to another supplier to save $1 because of the upheaval that brings to their entire supply chain. So, a year later, and a lot of manufacturing later, we launched with Kate Spade. And the deal we had with them was that we sold them the tech, and then we bought back at cost some of the bags so that we could also sell direct to consumer. Which meant that we got those really great 75% margins on those bags, but it also meant that we stayed really close to the customer. Because we knew that if we got too far and we became just B2B, that would be easy to lose touch. And it was a really, really big, important part for us to always be thinking about what does the customer want and what sacrifices and compromises can we not make in order to make this a perfect product for the customer. Because we had seen over and over again how products get engineered for the engineer. And there are more and more buttons, and it's more and more complicated, and you have to read a huge manual, and then you have to go and watch a YouTube video. And so we wanted to make sure that all of the decisions we made were to make it super easy for the customer. And we were afraid that if we became just B2B that we'd lose touch and we'd start engineering for ourselves and not for what the customer really needed and wanted. So at this point we we left Drupal and moved to Shopify, and it revolutionized our lives. Made things a lot easier. And we spooled up a whole bunch of marketing and PR plans with Kate Spade, and actually the day that we announced it, we gave their stock a very nice, almost 1% bump, which is fantastic. We have a great article giving us credit for that. And then the day that it launched and went on sale, we crashed their site for 2 days, which was fantastic for us, maybe not for them, but really, really exciting for us. And the product sold really quickly. And this was right before the holidays. So in March, when their CEO was giving their 10K end of year report, they highlighted Everpurse as one of the key factors in their holiday success. Because we not only gave them an excellent product to sell, but by giving them something really distinctive, we drove tons of eyeballs to their site, and we helped them to sell other products besides our own without having to discount. So a really cool look at this as a unique product, but also as a really interesting marketing plan or feature that really drove sales across their entire platform. So since then, we've done another couple of runs with Kate Spade, and we've really looked at how the landscape is evolving and changing, and the things that we've learned about fashion tech and what fashion tech has become, and how we partner with large brands. And we've decided to go an IP route and take all of the IP and the tech that we've developed and start chopping it out to other larger brands and giving it to them to further develop. I think over the last couple of years, as a lot of brick and mortar has gone under and things have gone more digital and more e-commerce, a lot of brands, at least within the US, have gotten nervous and less comfortable with tech. And they've shied back, gone back to a lot of the things that they're much more familiar with. So Kate Spade just got bought by Coach a couple of months ago, and Coach is adamantly anti-tech. But we've seen the tides turning in Europe. And when we started, Europe was very anti-tech. LVMH, or Louis Vuitton's corporate company, wouldn't even allow remarketing. They were so anti-tech. And now the tides have really turned, and they're excited, and they're looking towards the future and thinking about how do they evolve as their customer evolves, knowing that a lot of these luxury customers are older. How do they keep pace so that in 5 or 10 years, when their customer is, who millennials are today, how do they make sure that they have products that are targeting those customers? So it's been interesting for us as the landscape has changed, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next.
So you're actively talking to other clients?
We are, but more to sell the IP and the brand. I think as a founder, I've personally taken the company as far as I want to. And so I'm personally excited about looking for seeing what I want to do next. So I think there's a lot of space for Everpurse, the brand, and what we've built, and how maybe how well known it is for how small we are. But I'm not the person to do it. No. Yes.
Was there something specific about purses that made you launch with this, as opposed to like slightly a broader approach than doing this for backpacks, messenger bags, right? Like, 'cause I'm a guy and I would love this as well.
It's the size
right?
of the market. Handbags are the biggest fashion product by sales. And I hear that a lot from men, but men don't buy the way that women buy. And on a more personal note, I wanted to make something for me, and I was tired of most tech products being made for men. But so, I mean, it's not that I didn't care about or felt like I was purposefully leaving out half of the market. I just don't think it's half the market. It's a smaller market.
Do you have an engineering background then?
Nope, I do not. I studied sociology. So it's all just self-taught for our entire team. We had a CTO who is a software engineer, but all of us, we did our own engineering, just staying up late studying. There's a lot you can learn on the internet. Yeah.
So you said it took you a year to kind of close the deal. Like, how did this crystallize with Kate Spade?
Yeah, so the head of product development at Kate Spade reached out to me on LinkedIn after seeing an article in a fashion magazine, and we went in and met with her in February, and then followed up again in April, and then in June, and we just kept coming in, and she'd have all these posters in her office from like Samsung and LG, and we're like, oh God, there's no way we're gonna win this. Until she started explaining that these big brands were pitching her, but she just didn't see that they would gel well with their company. And we were really flexible about tailoring our product to what they needed. Did they want their logo on it? Did they want it pink? Did they want it white? Did they want it blue? Whatever they wanted, we would make our tech fit into all of the different types of bags and how they wanted it to look in ways that these larger companies weren't. And then she told us we're hiring a head of tech products, which I thought for sure was a like, shut up and go away, like just a line, because no fashion brand hires a tech person. And sure enough, it wasn't actually a tech person, it was someone who had worked for Bonobos in Silicon Valley, and so they thought she was tech. But they did hire a person for this tech position, and she, in August of that year, and she evaluated us and decided that we were the most interesting company that had pitched her. And so over the next couple of months, we kept coming back and we met with their designers, and we started making, drawing up samples and prototypes. And then by the end of that year, we started putting together a contract, and January, so a year later, we signed a contract. Signing a contract doesn't actually mean anything because you need a PO. So we had to wait until, I think, March until we got a PO. So then it's actually official. But it took a year from when we first met with them to when we actually closed the deal. Yeah.
About the leather, is your product only, can you be tailored, would that be, I'm probably opening up a horrible can of worms in your mind, you're like, if your mind.
No, it's okay.
Is there something about like leather, does it have to be leather for you, or are you only looking at leather, or?
No, some of the bags are vegan leather, right? But no, it could be nylon, it could be, so brands don't do nylon because nylon is a 17% import tax, so they try not to do nylon, but it would have been whatever they wanted, but they wanted leather.
So at this point you can.
Yeah, you can really, you can do anything. There's different materials wear in different ways, so I mean that's something to keep in mind, because when you put the tech inside, there are edges to it, and we make them round and large so they don't wear in very obvious sharp ways, but they do wear, and so but that's only, that's something to keep in mind. It's not something that means that we can't do it.
Have you thought about going back to Rebecca McCall? No?
No,
You're young.
not now.
Okay.
Well, and they're just not, and we've gotten to know the insides of a lot of these
Yeah,
brands,
yeah.
and I just know that they're not in a place where it would be a good fit. Yes?
Sorry, I guess I'll go. What's the lifetime like for a device like this? Was there issues with breaking at all? And if so, if one was to break, is the repair process difficult, like because of the way this is stitched up, or not at all? Is it super easy to replace
Yeah.
if somebody runs into issues?
So we give a year warranty because our factory gives us a year warranty. And we found that we got around a 3% failure rate, which is below average for electronics. So we felt really good about that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, things break and they fall apart. And so we built a way to open up the insides of the bag without destroying it, so we can remove the tech and replace it. So if something breaks, for a while we were just shipping out a new one because it's faster, but at this point we can repair them pretty quickly and ship it back out. Yes?
When you started out, how big was your inventory? Like, did you?
Well, when we first started building in our office, we did a few thousand there, but I mean, we were just building as we sold them, and so there was once or twice we ordered new batches of product, but there was one point where this SOS inventory system, I don't know if it was just enough screws rolled under the desk or what, but it completely failed us. And I looked at the shelves and thought, the inventory system says we can make another 200 or 300 bags, but we have to stop selling today. There's not enough product here to make enough bags. So we were just making them as we sold them and shipping them out as quickly as we could. Yeah. Yes?
You talked about your Kickstarter campaign, so just interested in hearing more about how you funded the business through its different phases.
So we did start with Kickstarter. I had an initial friends and family $25K that got us started, so we could do a professional looking video and things like that for Kickstarter, and that got us through, because Kickstarter holds your money for 20-30 days after your Kickstarter. So it takes a little while for you to actually get your money. And so that held us through to when we actually got it and could start using the money, and then we opened it up for pre-sales. Soon after that, we did a real family and friends round, where we did, I think, 400K. And then we did a couple of did a seed round. So in total, we raised just over $1 million. But, and that's something that I'm incredibly proud of. When I look at what other hardware companies have done, there's a lot more we could have done with a lot more money. But I am really, really proud of how scrappy we were and how much we were able to do on the money that we had. Because it turns out that hardware's real expensive. So yeah, we did a lot of like family and friends. The program that took us to China, they were attached to a venture firm, so they gave us some funding. And I pitched anyone and everyone I could talk to. Yes?
Did you ever have to deal with like knockoffs from China?
No, I mean not exact replicas of our product. What we did have to deal with is when we started selling through Kickstarter and immediately after, there were only iPhone 4s, and then iPhone 5 came out. But because it was a new connector, Apple hadn't worked out their licensing program yet, and it took them a couple of months. And so we were in China trying to figure out how to source all of our components, and knew that we needed lightning connectors to start making iPhone 5 versions of the bag. And so we went around to different knockoff suppliers, since to buy the cables legitimately would have been $19 a piece. So we knew we had to find a cheaper option, so we went around to all of these illegitimate suppliers or knockoff suppliers and bought the cables. We took them home, and a lot of them were total shit. And so we would take acetone, because acetone, do you guys know what acetone is? It's like the stuff that's a nail polish remover. It melts plastic, so just a little. And so we found that the outside part of the lightning connector would slide down off of the actual lightning connector chip, and so when that happens, the whole thing falls apart. And so we bought syringes and would soak up some acetone, and we squirt it around the edge, and then we stuck them in the fan so that it would dry, and we had this Medusa-looking thing with cables coming out the fans. And we made a rule that each person could only do it for an hour, because after that we noticed people started to fade. We were worried that we'd have people passing out from the acetone fumes. So fortunately, it was only so long before Apple started legitimately selling these cables through real suppliers, and we didn't have to deal with that anymore. But actually, in the meanwhile, have you guys ever seen that little message come up on your phone that says this is not a supported device?
Yeah.
Yeah, so before they started licensing the actual connectors, they updated the software to recognize the fake ones. And it recognized maybe 2/3 of the fake ones, but it was enough to cause a serious problem, and we had to remake a lot of bags that went out to customers. They updated the software, and then they had to ship them back to us. And we took these cables back to China and started showing them. And it just broke my heart seeing these shop owners, just to see their faces when they realized that, oh God, all of these cables that I'm selling are now, they don't work anymore, or customers will notice that they're. So we went stand to stand, because in China they have these giant flea markets. It's you can walk into a mall and it's a whole 10 stories of stall after stall after stall after stall, and there'll be 2 floors of just lightning connectors, and you just go stall to stall to stall, trying to get a better price or a product that works. So that was the closest that we got to really needing to deal with issues of knockoffs. Yes?
At what point did you consider marketing? You said you didn't have any marketing background for your husband.
So right from the Kickstarter, we started doing PR. So that was a big part of it. We do these individualized videos for reporters, and we thought a lot about how to make it snowball. So we got an article in the Chicago Tribune so that it would syndicate, right? And then from there, we had a good friend who worked as a small business ad sales at Google. And so he helped us set up branded campaigns, which, I mean, now we see a great, much better return through Facebook ads, but at the time, branded ads, at least for us, were really, really cheap. There was something about probably the fact that there was nothing else at the time like this, that we really stood out, and we had enough PR, and without even really doing SEO, we had a lot of articles pointing to us, and so we just did Google ads, and it worked really well for us. We've had to, we've had to evolve our strategy and learn on the fly, but it seems to me that that's what a lot of marketing is now. I mean, things change so quickly that I don't know if my marketing background that I might have, I could have had would be, as relevant today. I don't know. Say otherwise if that's not true. It seems to me that it's always changing, and so we've just learned on the fly as we go. But we've always done it, yeah. Yes.
So Kate Spade did not make you sign an exclusivity with them?
We signed a 6-month, 1-season exclusivity, which is fine. I mean, the amount of work that it takes to bring on one brand, we're like, sure. Right. Fine with me. Yeah. I mean, we could work with anybody after that.
Did you have to deal with any safety measures with this, like having charger in the purse and you holding the purse all the time? So the test, did you test?
Yeah. We did a lot of testing, and we built a lot of safety into it. So, I mean, there are safety circuits in the batteries and all of that, and but we added another layer of just kind of overkill. But we put an additive into the plastic that houses the components that is fireproof. So, if for some reason the battery exploded, then your bag probably wouldn't be saved, but you wouldn't get burnt because within, I think it was like 5 seconds, the fire gets snuffed out by this additive in the plastic. So we thought a lot about things like that. It also made it waterproof, so even if you spilled water in your bag, it shouldn't kill the electronics inside or cause any problems. So yes, we did. But also, we've had this question before. Won't having this device in my bag kill my ovaries? And that is not true. Turns out that it is safer than having your cell phone in your pocket. So there's some things that are safety concerns that we found are not real major safety concerns. Yeah. Yes?
Was Kate Spade very strict about do it yourself, or did they trust you to have to take that up to stuff?
They were very involved, but their model is to outsource things. So even though they design, then they send the design to a manufacturer, and they trust the manufacturer to be the one that knows all about how to build a bag. And then they send it back and they make markups, but their model is built around trusting other people to do the work and just be the creative center. And so there was a lot that they trusted us on, and even more than that, a lot they trusted our manufacturer on. So, they had people come in and audit the factory and things like that, but yeah, there was a lot of trust in us to know what we were talking about, and once we proved it, they let us kind of run with it. So, yeah.
Would this be its own separate line, or would if I'm going shopping for Kate Spade bags, there would be like a Everpurse and the non-Everpurse version of that bag? And if so, would there be a big price difference between the two?
There's not a big price difference. That was pretty important to us. But most of these bags are not for sale as non-Everpurse bags.
Okay.
So this is the standard shape for them, and this black one comes without tech in it, but a lot of the other colors didn't, and all the other shapes were designed specifically for us. That way too, and we didn't want people to look at it and think, like, when you buy a coat, you don't think, gosh, should I spend an extra $5 on a coat with a zipper instead of buttons? You don't think like that, but at one point a zipper was technology for fashion. And so we wanted to kind of keep the same mindset that we didn't want people to think, should I get the tech bag or not? Like it's $50 more. We didn't want any of that kind of thought. We just wanted it to become a natural part of the bag. And so we did a lot to obfuscate the price.
How much does it weigh? I don't know.
It weighs the same as an iPhone, so 4 ounces. So you don't actually notice the weight when it's inside, especially once you put a laptop in or whatever.
What was the name of that incubator that you said?
HAX, H-A-X. And the venture fund that's behind it is SOS Ventures, Sean Sullivan Ventures. They're based in Ireland.
No relations to your inventory management system?
No relation to my inventory management system. They were great. They were not the SOS help type.
All right, thank you very much.